So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to paint this kind of spiraling school of watercolor fish in Procreate. And the process for this is actually pretty easy if you know a couple of tricks, and that's what I'm going to focus on in this video. As usual, I'll put a list of the brushes I'm using in the description. So the first thing we need to do is paint maybe 10 or 15 really simple fish. So to do that, I'm going to grab the medium quill brush in this sort of medium saturated teal color. And all these fish are going to be stroke based. So I'm just going to start with a very light pressure, then I'll press harder, and then I'll just abruptly lift it off to make the end of it kind of rounded. And you could leave this as it is, but you could also go in there and add some kind of simple details for the fins as well. And I'll go ahead and repeat this process and paint all the fish like this. Now to make some of the later steps easier, you want to make sure there's a pretty big gap between the fish, and also you want to make sure they're swimming roughly in the same direction. And there we go, I think that'll be enough. Now these ones did end up being a little bit too close together. Usually I want to leave enough space for a fish kind of in the gap, but I think this will still work. Next, I want to move on and basically kind of randomize the color of each fish. So to do that, I'll grab the freehand selection tool, and I'll just go through and select each fish one at a time, and then I'll adjust the color using the hue, saturation, and brightness, just to make them all a little bit different. And the next step is optional, but I also want to add a little bit of a color shift in each individual fish just by itself. So once again, I'll use the freehand selection tool, but this time I'll just select a portion of the fish. Then I'll feather it out around 10%. Hue, saturation, and brightness. And you can kind of mess with this as well, but in a different way, just to add a secondary color into the fish. So at this point, we're almost ready to start working on the kind of final arrangement. But before we do that, we need to solve a sort of invisible problem first. Now, since these fish are on a white background, you can't tell, but each one is a little bit transparent. So I'll demonstrate that. So here's the layer with the fish. I'll select a layer below them, and I'll just scribble on some random colors here. So even though the fish are above, this random color is still showing through. And before we can move on, we need to fix that. So to do that, I'm going to first duplicate the fish layer, then I'll select the lower one, and I'll raise the brightness all the way to max. And you can see here, it just created a sort of identical fish layer, but it's below it and it's pure white. And you can see already it's sort of blocking out that random scribble a little bit. But to do it a little bit more, I'll just duplicate it. And I think in this case, 2 copies of the white version is good enough. So I'll go ahead and merge all those together onto one layer. And you can see now the fish are pretty much totally opaque. And now for the final arrangement, I need to zoom out so I can see pretty much the whole artboard. And I'll create a duplicate of the fish. And I'm going to make it so the duplicate here is swimming, sort of opposing it. I'm basically just imagining there's kind of a circle in the middle here, and I'm going to position copies of the fish sort of orbiting around it. Now in this case, I think the fish are swimming a little bit too straight. So I'm going to use the warp tool to adjust this. And I'll do the same for the other one as well. And we can kind of see this is going to be really off center. So I'll reposition these so they're more centered on the artboard. And then I'll just go through and create a bunch of duplicates of these kind of groups of fish and then position them loosely around this sort of circular design. Now it's important though not to fit everything together too tightly. You want to leave a pretty sizable gap between each group of fish. And usually when I follow this process, you end up with 5 or 6 copies, so I think this is pretty typical. And you can see everything is still on separate layers. So at this point, I'm just going to pinch everything together to merge it onto one. After that, I'll grab the freehand selection tool, and I'm basically going to kind of expand these groups of fish to fill in the white gaps. So for example, I'll select this fish here, and then just move them over here and try to find a better position. And I'll repeat this process until pretty much all the gaps are pretty evenly filled up. And there we go, I think this looks pretty good. Now once again, it's kind of a little bit off center, so I'll fix it real quick with the warp tool. And then in the center here, I want to add some more fish, but I need to pay special attention to the direction because I really want to increase the kind of swirliness here. So to do that, I need to duplicate some of these fish. So what I'll do is I'll use the freehand selection tool, and I'll just select a random kind of segment down here. Then I'll do copy and paste, and it basically just duplicated those fish and put them on a layer above. So I'll just move these extra fish off to the side. And then I'll sort of use them to kind of splice in and fill this center portion. And this looks like enough fish for the center, so I'll use the remaining fish to fill in some of these random gaps. And at this point, the illustration is really starting to come together, but there's a couple more really important steps that'll improve the look of this. So first, I want to merge the two fish layers together onto one. Then I'll create a duplicate of it, and I'll select the lower one, and I'll scale it up a little bit. Might want to zoom out here. I'll scale it up a little bit, and then I'll rotate it just to stagger the fish. There we go. After that, I'll go to my adjustments, and I'm going to desaturate this fish layer all the way to 0, just to make it pretty much black and white. And then after that, I want to recolor all these black and white fish to be one shade of blue. So to do that, I'll go to the curves adjustment. I'll make sure it's set to one of these options here, red is fine, and I'll just raise this bottom node, and this will make all the fish basically one shade of red. Now they're all the same color, but it's the wrong color. So to adjust it, this time I'll go to hue, saturation, and brightness, and I'll shift the hue and mess with this until I can find the right shade of blue. After that, I want to make all these kind of background fish very light and sort of faded. So for that, I'll go back to the curves adjustment, I'll set it to gamma, and this time I'm just going to raise this bottom node, and you'll see it kind of lightens all the fish in a really nice even way. There we go. After that, I'll make another layer of these lighter fish. Again, I'll select the bottom one, and I'm just going to rotate it once again to kind of stagger it. Then I'll go to my curves adjustment again, and I'll make it even lighter. I want this sort of effect where there's sort of progressively lighter and lighter layers of fish as we go into the background. Next, I want to do something called selection blending, and this is an optional effect that's going to kind of increase the watercolor effect here. So to do that, I first need to merge all the fish stuff together onto one layer. Then I'll tap on this layer to bring up the menu, and I'll enable alpha lock. After that, I'll grab the freehand selection tool, and I'm going to make a random kind of tunneling selection that goes just all over this illustration. After that, I'll circle back and reconnect it. Then I'll feather it out just around 10%. Adjustments, Gaussian blur, and this is just going to blur the area we selected. And you can see it just blends the colors kind of across fish wherever they touch. And I think in this case, maybe around 14 or 15% is good enough. And at this point, the illustration is almost finished. We just need to do a little bit of cleanup. So kind of, since we were maximizing the artboard, in a couple places we went off the edge and it sort of cut some of the fish in half. So at this point, I'm just gonna go in there with the eraser brush, and I'll go through and erase any of the fish that are damaged or any of the ones that are kind of too far beyond the edge. And if you notice a sort of lopsided area like this that lost too many fish, you can sort of copy and transplant some of the fish from the other side and use them to fill the gap. And just like that, this kind of swirling school of watercolor fish is finished. And here's the final result. Sort of from the beginning, I kind of imagined this as a 5x7 card. So I printed it basically oversized, and then I cut it down to 5x7. And that's how I got everything to print all the way to the edges. And that pretty much wraps it up. If you think I've earned it, give this video a like. If you want to learn more about how to print your Procreate artwork, and specifically how to make 5x7 cards like this, I think you might like to watch this video next.